Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Gooner Talk podcast, the weekly show in which I'm joined by a couple of our regular guests to break down what we hope to be a rather positive weekend. But we cannot say the same for this week. It has been absolutely dire. And for anyone who tuned in for the Raw Reaction show straight after the game, you'll see my gradual mental descent into madness in that video. I can see John nodding as it was utter ridiculous what we saw in that game. We're going to talk about it all and get other people's thoughts and your thoughts and our questions that have come in as well. But first of all, let's introduce our guest. First off, we've got John. How you doing, mate?
No, I've been better.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think that's all you needed to say. Webby, how you doing, mate?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, mate. And that is perfect audio, actually. So whatever you've done, if anything, we can hear you perfectly now.
I've spoken up a bit louder, so there you go.
Hello to everyone in the chat this evening. Thank you for tuning in. We've got everyone in there. We've got Emery. We've got Bulgarian Gooner. It's not a good evening, as he puts it. We've got Matthew Jones. We've got Nico. We've got VCC. Bath is in there. Loads of people are joining us, of course. I don't really like doing Monday shows. I said to John, because obviously our good friends over at Same Old Arsenal do it at the same time. And it's not intentional, believe me. It's just, it doesn't really work on a Sunday when we have a Sunday game. And I like to have at least 24 hours before we can sort of reflect on things. Because you can see at the Raw Reaction show how much emotion sort of goes into my feelings straight after a game. So it's good to relax, have 24 hours. I've started to edit together the tactical breakdown, which also gives me a little bit more of an insight as well into some of the things that went wrong. And we're going to discuss it all. But John, in the calmest way possible, what is your 2-minute breakdown of yesterday's extravaganza?
Okay. I'll start off by saying that we got a point out of it, and it could have been a lot worse. So if we're going to start off with a positive, as much of a positive as that is, we didn't lose that game, and we very well could have. That's the first thing. I think that it was bizarre how we capitulated after the second half. I think we allowed them, and has been kind of a concerning trend with this team, allowing way too many shots on goal, and it's bound to catch up with us eventually. And that was even when we were going through that good period last time. So this match is kind of, it was bad. It was bad from a lot of perspectives. It was bad from the performance on the pitch. It was bad from the substitutions. The selection was a little bit weird. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And against a very poor Watford side, missing one of their key attacking forces, to allow them that many shots on goal, it was unacceptable. And then it was just a fiasco, because afterwards the comments that the manager was making, that Granit Xhaka was making, and I'm sure we'll get into it. It was just a very bizarre game, and it was just unpleasant from pretty much start to finish. Besides the goal that Aubameyang scored, which was class, I will say that was an incredible goal, that first goal, and that kind of pre-assist from Ozil was great too. So I guess those are positives as well. But I mean, there's a lot to discuss, and there's a lot that needs to be asked of not only this team but this manager.
Yeah. No, I couldn't have summed it up much better myself. Webby, how did you sort of react to the game afterwards? What was your initial emotion?
I thought that it was we didn't deserve, really. We was lucky to get the point, and I see that coming from like the first half. In actual fact, I know I'm going to get like slated for this, but I actually looked at the betting before we scored, and I was like, I wonder what Watford odds are, because they look so much better than I expected. That I was kind of bemused. So I got my 365 account open, and I was like, I wonder what the odds are right now, because Watford were all over us. And then suddenly, like literally within 30 seconds, we scored, and suddenly started to gain all this sort of control. And I was like, oh, okay, usual. Everything's all sort of got restored, and and then it all fell apart again. So I think that Watford definitely deserved a point, if not more, and we got everything that we deserved. So I wasn't overly upset. I was upset with Arsenal. I was upset with the result, but I wasn't upset because I felt robbed. I was upset just because I thought we was rubbish, and but I didn't feel like there was any injustice.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, mate. And whilst usually in the show, what we do is we talk to you guys and then we talk about the questions afterwards. I kind of want to jump straight into some of the questions that are coming from Twitter just so we can get them done. So I'm going to share on the screen for you now a couple of questions that have come in and we'll talk through some of the stuff because I'm sure it's going to lead into plenty of things that we're going to talk about. So on Twitter, which hopefully should be on your screen right now, is the question from @John's Addy Base. Love that I mean, drum and bass head myself, so I appreciate it. Johnny says, question for the pods. If Raul Sanllehi and Vinai are serious about achieving Champions League football this year, is Unai Emery's job in danger right now? Considering the form from last season as well as this season, the hierarchy must be looking at other managers to bring in should we continue in this vein.
I think that's a great question, and I think that it's certainly a question that's being asked among the hierarchy, especially after a performance like that. And I think especially if it continues. I said it after that game. I said that he can't do this again. This can't happen again. Not the way it did right there. We can't allow 28 shots on goal, something ridiculous like that from Watford. I mean, that's not acceptable. That's not a top level a team, and we've been doing that for about almost, we did that last season, and going into the season, there was a stat floating around that we've let more shots on goal than any team in Europe, some crazy like that. So that there's definitely a question that needs to be and should be asked about the manager, and I'm guessing that's going to be happening at the higher levels with Raul and Vinai. So I think that it's a legitimate question. I think that when this manager came in, and if you remember, I was saying it was to me, it was clear what he was brought in to do. He was a Europa League specialist. He was brought in to maybe challenge for that, to bring us into the top 4, to get us back into Champions League qualifications. That's kind of what his level was. It was never about challenging for the title, which okay, if you look at the grand scheme of things, when all's said and done, if he manages to get us into the top 4, this result's not going to matter. The drop points and how many shots on goal we get are not going to matter. To the extent that if his goal was to get us in the Champions League and he does that, it doesn't matter. It's not great to watch, I'll tell you that. I don't like watching the way we play and haven't for a good amount of time now. So are they going to look at him and say, listen, maybe we need to make a change? I think that if more performances like this start popping up, I think that they will.
Yeah, I think it's important to discuss this because obviously the podcast, what I try to do with the podcast is the day after the podcast is always tactical breakdown where we go into all the delvy bits about the game and what went wrong. A podcast like that question is more about getting the reaction and talking about the specific and the key news of what's come out in the fallout. And this has really been the first time I've truly seen a united, I wouldn't say completely united, but a large majority of fans on social media pushing for change already. Right. And with Wenger, it was always the case of it. I thought it was pretty much a split down the middle. And it seemed more on the side of Wenger out because of how much more vocal those fans were on social media. And towards the end, to be fair, it did become more of a majority on that side, which ultimately I think led to the people not going to games and leaving. And Webby, for me, people leaving games could be something that comes back a lot sooner than I ever thought it would do in these games against Aston Villa, in these games that against these smaller sides, especially the Europa League home games. And it's not like last season in the Europa League. We've actually got a couple of teams in our group that are a decent side, well known. They're not from Ukraine. They're not from Eastern Europe. They're from Portugal and Belgium and Germany. And for me, I was originally excited about the Europa League, but I feel that already there is going to be a fan backlash in the stadium. And what do you think it would actually take to see Josh and Vinai and Raul make a decision which means Emery no longer being manager?
For starters, we'd need to lose more games. We've only lost one game. I mean, we drew against Tottenham, we drew against Watford. Let's not blow this out of proportion. The result was awful, the performance was awful, and the statistics are dreadful. It was still just one game. I was actually quite proud of us against Tottenham. I was doing the quick review only a couple of days ago, and I was saying, Watford are on their arse, and we're looking really good, and we should win. And I wasn't thinking to myself, and we should go, and Arsenal are being rubbish, and Norwich beat Man City the other day. I doubt there's many Man City fans wanting Pep's head, albeit I'm not trying to compare the two really, because I know they're totally separate entities. But still, you get my point that it was woeful, it was awful, and if we continue to lose games and we continue to leak goals left, right, and centre, and it gets worse or no better, then I think they will consider it. I think his job will be in question, and I don't think it will be January. Although I know some people might be wishful thinking it might be. I doubt it. I don't think that's the way.
If I could just quickly cut across you, and I'll let you retort this. I just want to throw across to play devil's advocate that I see that it's only one game this season. However, for a lot of fans, what they'll see is that this is a follow-on from what we saw at the end of last season, from the capitulation to not achieving top four, to losing the Europa League final, to then have a summer where you bring in someone who is our record signing. We make additions at the back with David Luiz. You make additions in other areas on the pitch as well. And people would say is that we're not making any progress, that we're not improving, that nothing is really changing. So that's what would you say to that, to say that maybe we won't need too many more games because we're simply not seeing an improvement in the side?
I think we would need a lot more games of it to continue. I don't think people want to hear that. I think people disagree with me because people are tearing their hair out. Like
Is that down to what you see from above and how Arsenal act around managers?
Probably because I think that Arsenal portray themselves differently to some other clubs. We don't run the club the same as a Chelsea or these clubs where they do kind of run it. Chelsea kind of run it as if it's their own little. They don't run it kind of as a business in that sense. I don't feel that they run it as like a toy, and they just sort of whip out managers left, right, and centre. Arsenal have been very vocal in the fact that they run it with a lot more structure, and I don't think that they'll be just whipping managers out. Regardless of how poor the results are, and I agree. I think Emery really needs to be questioned. I really do think that. I just don't think it's in Arsenal's way to be too hasty in doing so. And I know people are going to be wanting to think, well, I don't want to believe it because I think he should go, or I don't like his tactics, or we're not making progress. I agree with everything. I just don't think that we'll be seeing it anytime soon. I think that the form at the back end of last season was atrocious. I thought we did really well until that dip in form. I don't know when it was. It was like 6 games before the end, and we couldn't win to save our lives.
The Palace game. I think that was the turning.
Up until that point, we was doing right. We was doing well in the Europa. We got all the way to the final, and then we fell off a cliff. Now that really we haven't ever recovered from that, and we beat Newcastle. We sort of struggled against Burnley to get the win. I thought Burnley were really good against us. Liverpool got smashed. Tottenham, I thought we did well. But then London Derby, all bets are off a little bit, because then London Derbies, it's different to any other game. And, Watford was dreadful. So, like I said, I've answered the question 3 times over, I think.
No, that's fine, mate. I just wanted a question on that because I think that when we talk about where we are as a club, I think that a lot of people wanted to see an immediate reaction, an immediate change from what we've seen. And in my head, I knew that we wouldn't see that immediate change. We weren't going to see like a new manager bounce because it's not the same. We're a completely unique situation to any other club. It's not Chelsea changing their manager. It's not like Watford changing their manager and then seeing something immediately change. Arsenal have been set in their ways for such a long time that it took that transition. But at the same time, a lot has changed around the club. We talk about Josh coming in. We talk about Vinay and Raul having more of an impact. We talk about Edu having an impact in terms of a technical director role. We talk about how we've spent a lot of money. We've brought in a lot of players. And then you then factor in the fact that we're not seeing a progression. That's where the issues start to arise, is that we can't change the constant mistakes that we're making, that the defensive errors aren't going away, that we're making decisions, even in the transfer market, signing players like David Luiz as basically a backup because we couldn't get the players that we wanted. And we settled for a player that makes mistakes. And we've seen that with the 2 penalties that he's given away this season. John, at what point do we get to where it comes down to the fact where there's a problem ingrained throughout the team and throughout the club? Or is it as simple as you swap out a manager until you get the right shape going in the right hole?
Well, I mean, I think it's a difficult question, but I mean, and here's this thing that we're talking about what Chelsea have done and how we're not like Chelsea or we're not like teams like that they just switch out a manager. But you look at the success that they've had over this last decade and you compare it to what we've done over this last decade. And I'm not saying that that's the right way to do it or that's the way that we should do it, but I'm saying that you can't deny that Chelsea have been a successful team and employing that model. I mean, they sacked their manager who just won them the league. Obviously, you know, that it's not working out very well right now for them, but I think if you look at what they've done and how they've progressed in terms of their manager, they've done all right. So whether we're going to do that is a different story, because I agree with I agree that we're not that kind of a team. We're not that kind of a team. I don't think we're run that way. But that being said, it's also a little bit difficult to say that because we've never really been in a position like this before. We've had Wenger for a manager for a long time, and we haven't really seen this is the first time we've ever experienced a post-Wenger situation in terms of who the manager is and how the team is approaching that. What it looks like is it's becoming a lot more in the back scenes, behind the scenes. It looks a lot more like it's becoming less relevant. The manager's job is a lot less relevant. The coach's job is a lot less relevant, at least in terms of like the way it was before with Wenger, where if it's his decision and his way or the highway. That's not the case anymore. So to answer your question, when does it become a situation where it's so permeated and it's such a problem that we need to make a change? I don't know the answer to that, in the sense that a lot of factors play into that right now. And I don't think we're at that point yet. I don't think that we've seen exactly what Emery wants to do with this team to full fruition. And I mentioned it earlier. I think that one of the big criticisms that people have over this manager is that this lack of an identity over the course of his period. People are saying, look, he's had 3 transfer windows. This is his second season right now, and we don't see anything different than what we would have seen before. In fact, it looks like we've dropped some of an identity. We've dropped an identity that all of a sudden we're not playing this Wenger ball. There is no Emery ball that we can actually say, look, this is how Arsenal play. To the best of our abilities, we can say it has something to do with playing from the back, and it has something to do with, not as much this season, but definitely last season, trying to press the ball and win it high up the pitch. And I think there's an argument that he doesn't really have those players to do it now, and that maybe it'll get better when Tierney and Bellerin come back, because they're going to add a little bit more in the attack and get the ball from defense to attack way quicker. But there's also an argument that, like, look, you're talking about a player who in Bellerin maybe wasn't as defensive as people think he might, he is or could be. And Tierney's still a question mark regarding his ability to do what he did in Scotland over here in England. And whether, the injury, which I don't think is going to be a big deal, but there's still question marks around that. So when you really look at what's happening with this team, you're looking at a continuum of last season where we still haven't identified how this team plays. We have some great attacking potential, yet when the manager makes substitutions like he does, or lines the team up like he does, it's really confusing to see why are we not playing to our strengths? Look at Liverpool as a perfect example. Why were we not playing to our strengths in that game? Why do we want to sit back and absorb pressure? We're not good at it. Why do we keep doing that? And I think a lot of people are frustrated with that. And I think that if you keep doing that and it's not working, I mean, you got to look at the manager at that point. If the manager is unwilling to play to the team's strengths, then I don't see why he needs to be in consideration for continuing employment at the club. I mean, I think we're at that point right now where we need to get the best out of this team. And like I said, I think I'll give him this season. I will give him this season. And I'll give him another transfer window in January, see what we can do in terms of the defense, see if he can shore it up a little bit. But there comes a point in time where no matter how much he tries, nothing is getting better. Nothing's getting better. And that's concerning.
And I think it's ingrained in not just Emery, but it's ingrained in some of the players that they're just not improving. They're not. Right. They're not getting better. Aubameyang is pretty much the force which is dragging this Arsenal team through and getting them the goals that we need at certain points, but no one around him. I haven't seen. I mean, I want to talk about Pepe a little bit because since he signed, and last week when I was on with you and Mike, John, and I brought up the fact that Pepe has not scored yet is concerning me. And the fact that he hasn't really taken a game by the scruff of the neck like a £72 million signing should do is concerning. Now, I don't like necessarily saying the words £72 million signing, because I've seen Philippe Coutinho move to Barcelona for over 100 million and fail. I've seen Ousmane Dembele move to Barcelona for over 100 million and not become the prodigy that he was when he was at Dortmund. I've seen players move to other teams throughout the league for a lot of money. Di Maria at Manchester United, Falcao, Manchester United. And you can say, yeah, it's Manchester United, but they're still very good players that have played well elsewhere. You look at Angel Di Maria at PSG, he's completely different to what he was at Man United. And these players are either successes or failures because of the coaching that they receive at the club that they go to. And for me, Emery is not the type of manager that would get the best out of someone like Pepe, because we've not seen him do it at PSG. He was in there at the season in which Monaco won the league. He couldn't get the best out of that team to win them the league during that season. And maybe we're seeing things. And someone brought up in the chat actually about his away record at Sevilla. And in one of his, I think it was his final season, that he didn't win a single game away from home with Sevilla in his final season. Now, in La Liga, whilst I'm a huge defender of the league, even though Mike likes to call it a feed league all the time, whilst I defend La Liga to the hilt, I'm well aware that there are teams now at the bottom of that league that are a much lower quality than the teams that you'll see at the bottom of the Premier League. And that's changed over the course of the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But at the same time, Sevilla should have beaten comfortably a lot of those teams and didn't. And I think that actually boils down to, I don't want to call it a lie because I think that's harsh, but I think something which Emery has exaggerated when he came in, and that's when he used the term protagonist, and that he wants to play like a protagonist. And I've not seen that whatsoever. I mean, I've seen it in games in which Arsenal are at home and playing teams which they're better than, and they have most of the possession. But if we're going away from home to a team that are bottom of the league, that haven't won a single game all season, and our captain on the day is saying that we were scared at 2-0 up, that's not being a protagonist. That's being a coward. Like, that is the complete opposite of being a protagonist. That is you carrying away and trying to let other people make the mistakes or other people take the game to them. There's so many avenues we can go down from that. I mean, let's start with Granit Xhaka, because when I did the Raw Reaction show, Webby, I was getting frustrated, and I don't like getting frustrated at my chat box because I think I've honestly got one of the best, or we've got one of the best audiences on this channel, from the comments that we get, the in-depth knowledge, and how clever some of you guys are with your comments. But my God, was I getting irritated at some people saying that Xhaka didn't have a bad game. And there wasn't anything wrong with Xhaka's performance, because he was giving the ball away. He was out of position. You look at their second goal and what it leads to. You look at how much he pushes up the pitch, out of position, leaving a gaping hole in the middle of the field for them to just run through, and Pereira to just get played the ball from Decore and run at the defence. And there's also times where he just runs away. They're pushing up the pitch and he's running away, trying to hold position. What is wrong with him closing players down? I thought he was this tenacious guy that would go in to tackles. But Webby, for me, Xhaka is the opposite of captain material for consistency and being an example on the pitch. What was your thoughts on his comments, and what do you think should happen with him moving forward?
As far as the comments are concerned, I don't even know where to start. I mean, these guys get coaching on what to say and what not to say in front of the camera. So how he could come out and say that they were scared is like beyond me. We're supposed to be the Arsenal. They're turning up to bottom of the league. So his words just mystify me. I don't even know how to. I can't even comprehend why he would say that. Unless he was just dumbfounded in front of the camera and said something stupid. But as far as his performance, I don't think he has the right leadership skills. I don't think he's got, like you said, enough consistency. I do think that everyone's underplaying how good I thought Watford was. As bad as we was, and I know, if we're that bad, then it makes another team look that good. But the flip side of that is, if they were that good, then it makes us look worse when we wasn't having a good game. And I did think they was that good. You know, they didn't just rock up and we were so awful that they just battered into submission. They had 31 shots on goal. I think there's few teams on their A game that can do that. And for whatever reason, we was all saying it before the game, how much is this manager going to have an impact? The fact that we barely turned up didn't really help matters. But I thought Watford looked good. They were pressing the ball high up the pitch. Their passing was slick. They were offensive. They had a lot of courage. You can't deny that. I think the team really lacks a captain, and until we get some real leaders in that changing room. And that includes the senior staff. I don't think we'll ever be strong enough, or mentally strong enough, to go into these games where things get tricky and times get rough, and really pull through it. We haven't seen it for years. I mean, we haven't really seen it since the Tony Adams and that there, really. So you see it in other teams, the spine of teams, your John Terry's and Rio Ferdinand's, the spine of some of these successful teams in the past have always had this grit and determination. And even the weaker teams, like your Stokes and your Watfords, some of these teams don't succeed on quality. That they succeed on sheer will and passion and strength and inner strength, mental strength. And they get through these games a different way to your Cities and your Uniteds and your Arsenal. So I think we're really in between things at the moment. I don't think we've really got the it's either the talent or the senior backbone to really push the team on properly. Mm-hmm. But we don't have the mental strength and the characters in the changing room to push us on when things get tough. So we're kind of nowhere. We're in like no man's land. We're right in between being able to slide through games just on a whim because we're so good, and dig in through mental strength. So we're sort of sitting ducks. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do get what you're saying. I especially get the point about the Watford, and we can't go amiss about saying how good they were. But Webby, what really annoys me is just how much we let them come on to us. Is that we allow shots, we allow crosses against Liverpool, we allow them, and I'm going to show it in tomorrow's. But actually, I'll see. Whilst John's giving us a little chat, I'll see if I can find. Now, I don't know how the copyright stuff works. Obviously, I use Y-Scout for my.
It's not just this season either.
It's no. If I show a clip on from Y-Scout, is it going to do me for copyright? Please let me know in the chat. If not, I'll just show you a still image of it. But it's when Xhaka runs backwards. He does it in a way in which I don't get why there's any point in us saying that we've got a pressing game, because there's no pressing at Arsenal. There's none. Like, we don't press them whatsoever. When the opposition has a ball, we stand off them. I'll find it in a second. We stand off them. We move backwards. There's no sort of initial trying to close down the player, pressure them into making mistakes. We step back, wait for them to do something, then clear it, then try and hit them on the counter. And it's so risky, and it's not protagonistic, if that's even a word. But it's not anything about Arsenal that I've seen in the past where we would have the invincible side. I know we shouldn't get stuck in the past and talk about. I've seen Arsenal sides press and win the ball back, get the ball back in the opposition half as much as possible, keep the pressure on. But we looked tired. We look so tired. And for a team which is supposedly going through all this stamina training and more coaching and building up our fitness, we look so tired. And that was epitomised. I don't want to keep coming back to Xhaka, but it was epitomised. There was a cross right at the end of the game, and Xhaka got his right foot to it, which I found odd because he's left-footed, and it went out for a goal kick. And the ball dropped and slowed down, and he gave up. And he could have 100% got to that ball had he have been committed. And that reminded me of that time where Walcott backed out of a challenge in a 50-50, and I was like, that's his career done at Arsenal. But there's so much wrong and so much that when it seems very ingrained at Arsenal that when one player goes out, be it Lacazette or be it Alexis when he was here, or be it Theo Walcott when he was in his prime, when Van Persie was injured, we lack something. As soon as one key player goes, then there's no one else that's ready to step up and really take it forwards. I know that Aubameyang definitely stepped up with the goals, and he's the only player that I feel that can get any. Although there is a question that I'm going to come on to a little bit later that's asking about Aubameyang. If I've got it up, I'll show it to you. But the question came in from Mad Wire. I'll get it up on the screen for you now. Should have it on the screen right now. There we go. So add the stream. The question from Mad Wire, Mad Wire 1. He says, even though Oba scored 2 lovely goals, I have always stated that his game won't bring out the best in Pepe, who gels well with a linking connective striker. Alba stayed far from him all match, and that hurt Pepe. As well as that, Alba only had 33 touches in 90 minutes. He was beaten in nearly all of his duels, was overpowered whenever the Watford defenders got close and failed to hold the ball up. In my opinion, his lack of involvement in the build-up ignited a lot of the pressure Watford were putting on us. I believe we were going to struggle without Lacazette because he gives us control of games by winning free kicks, holding the ball up, linking play, winning the ball back. Is it just me, or can you guys understand where I'm coming from? John, whilst I try and find the Xhaka thing I want to show you, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, you know where I stand on that. I've said almost exactly verbatim that exact question. So in terms of Lacazette, I think that he offers a lot. He basically acts as another midfielder. And the reality is that he will win the ball up high up the pitch. He will act as that target man. He will go back and defend. He will link up the attack. He does a lot of stuff other than offer a goal threat, which he does as well. So we definitely miss him when he's not playing. And Aubameyang can be very pedestrian in certain games. When he's on the left there, for example, he gets isolated a lot. And we've seen him in the last season and a few games this season struggle to make any impact on the game. Although, luckily, he is so clinical that when he does get even the slightest chance, he tends to be able to do it, to put it away. That being said, I feel like we've been writing that for a long time now. Even last season, even in that like good run where we were unbeaten and drawing games and winning games, we were and you looked at the expected goals. If you look at the expected goals from this game, it was huge. It was it was ridiculous. It was like 3 point something to 0.8. It was absolutely ridiculous. And that shows that we are allowing too many shots, too many good shots, and that we're clinical. The fact that we're not losing completely and getting blown out of games shows that when we do get a chance, we've taken it. And remember, last season, all these articles were coming out about how Arsenal are riding their luck and that, it's going to run out eventually, and that luckily Aubameyang had to win a golden boot just to keep us in some kind of a relevant conversation. And I think that was a big part of it. And I think that comes down to just when you're going back to your original point about the team kind of falling apart mentally when one player doesn't do it and another player isn't stepping up. I think that has to do a lot with the fact that we're just constantly shifting and moving things around. And I know what people are going to say, yes, but what everyone was complaining when Wenger was here that he didn't tinker enough, that he didn't, that he kept the same game plan going forward and forward, even if it wasn't working. Well, I think that there needs to be some kind of a golden mean in that regard. There needs to be like a qualitative middle ground between excess and deficiency. With Wenger, it was deficiency. We didn't have any tinkering going on. When something went wrong, there was no plan B. We would always end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. Here, I think that we're tinkering too much now. I think that there needs to be a point in time where you kind of say, all right, we need to solidify what the midfield pairing is going to be. We need to solidify what's going to happen in the back. Yes, you can switch up tactically for games depending on the opposition, but you can't switch up every single match, and you can't switch up every single position. You can't switch up every single position that we're in or shape that we're in. It doesn't work that way, especially in the midfield. If we're going to talk about Xhaka right now, a midfield pivot is just as important in terms of getting consistency as a center back partnership. And we know how important that is. So if you're going to keep like doing that, it's going to cause issues, and it's going to be a lack of consistency, and you're going to be scared when you're going away because there's not going to be that, okay, we know what we're doing here. If we're fans and we don't know what we're doing, I'm assuming that it's bleeding out into the field and the players are feeling a similar way. That I imagine that it's very frustrating, especially not if you're not an attacker. Or if you are an attacker. So I think if you look at Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe, when they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on behind them and why we're leaking goals and allowing so many shots, it's because they're not getting that consistency in the playing. Now, maybe we'll see that as the season progresses, but we hear about how Emery likes to tinker, and I think that he needs to maybe dial it back a little bit.
No, I think that's very well summed up. When you say tinker, though, it gives me nightmares because there's so much tinkering going on. Especially
there's so much. It's ridiculous. It's like we have no, and I guess that there's a certain benefit to that, especially when it comes to the opposition. They don't know how you're going to come out and how you're going to play certain times.
I saw a great point, and like I saw it was on Twitter. It's someone who I have mixed opinions on, but I'll bring it up anyway. But it was a good point, basically saying that the defense system changes so much is that they can never get settled on a system. Yeah. And if you're never settled, you can't play your best game. And I thought it was a good point that was well made. And that is going to be a problem. I found what I wanted to talk about. So Webby, I'll talk about this with you, mate, which is the constant walkabout now. Oh, God, I hope I don't get copyright strikes for this. But hopefully, can you see that on the screen? So I'm looking at something else.
Yeah.
So this is the goal. The ball was played out to Pereira, right? Look at the space between him and Kolasinac in this moment. And look how much space continues to be left as Pereira then pushes forwards. So he's going forwards. Kolasinac is running back, still running back. Now, in this moment, for me, David Luiz is coming over, right? You've got, I think it's Firmino who's at the right back. He's running. That's Kolasinac doesn't go to him. He knows he's got to cover both players. But now the communication between David Luiz should be that Kolasinac goes and closes down the on-runner, but much earlier. And David Luiz at this moment, further back, comes and closes down. The communication happens too late and the movement of both players happens too late. And that leads to then both of them being on the same player. Then he's easily able to take them on. Kolasinac now, you can see here, realises he has to close down that fullback. But it's way too late because Pereira can use him as a decoy, cut inside. And what David Luiz does next is just... I mean, what is that? What is that? And then the next one is on this one. Right here is that we've got a free kick. This was right at the end of the game when it's 2-2.
Is that Xhaka taking it?
I think it might be Xhaka.
It was like a really bad free kick, if I remember.
And he plays it in, and it gets basically just beaten away. So the ball goes in, it gets beaten away. I'm not playing. It's not lagging for you. I'm just slowing it down. And it gets beaten out. And it goes straight loose. And then this ball from Ainsley Maitland-Niles, right, is the weakest pass you've ever seen. It just goes straight to Decore. I think it might be Sarr, actually. And Sarr's running up there. Sarr's attacking. But look at his stride. Look at Xhaka's positioning in this still. He is in full sprint, not towards the ball, not closing Sarr down, but running towards his own goal. And this still, for me, epitomises everything about Arsenal in that way, in that game. And as Xhaka said, we were scared. We were running away from them. And you can see that. And it's so obvious. And he continues to do it. Runs away, continues to run away. Look, points over there. Points saying, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, you need to get on that player because our other defenders are way out of position in this because the defence is all over the place. Still doesn't close him down. Lets him play the crossing. And what you can see from this is you can see a mirror of the goal that we scored against Newcastle, where we were able to put the cross in over the top of the Newcastle defence, and Aubameyang was able to go onto it and score. And in this moment,
carry on playing the clip, Tom.
Go on then. So he's playing the ball in, and Maitland-Niles gets to it, right?
Yeah.
And
so how is that? So I want to play devil's advocate.
Go on then, mate.
Xhaka is not fast. If he goes in, if you come all the way back to the halfway line, if he commits to that tackle,
he's away.
Yeah, I
think that was actually pretty good from him.
I think Xhaka covers. It's 2-on-2, and I don't defend Xhaka very often, but in this case, I think he covers it. He plays him towards the sideline. He don't let him cut inside. He knows that if he gets too close and he gets done, he's not got the pace to catch up with him. Then it'd be 2-on-1, so he just plays his place. Now, you could argue that when the cross comes in, he could be a yard or close to it to try and cut.
I think he should be closer for the whole of the run. That's what I'm saying. He's providing him too much space. And if he's giving him too much space, he's allowing too many decisions to be allowed to be made by Sarr. He should be closer so that if there's a stride that goes wrong, he's much closer to then intercept any mistake made by Sarr in that moment. And also, Go on, Webby, go on.
I think you use it. I'm sorry, mate. I think
this is what it's here for, mate.
I think you use the clip, which you could use as a positive way. Well, basically, they're counter-attacking there. That's almost 3-on-3, barring a gnat's hair between the Watford player, which is slightly further back. But 3-on-4, 3-on-3, and at that point, all you can do is keep covering and try and rally, which is what he does for the most part of it. The problem is that both our CDMs are incredibly slow. Well, all three. I mean, Torreira's a little bit quicker, but generally we haven't got really quick midfielders. And so when they're trying to cover the centre backs in this example, I don't think it's. I think they defend that quite well. The other point that you showed about the communication between David Luiz and Kolasinac. Again, I think you're right in the fact that he should. I mean, I think he should be going over there. But not further back, because David Luiz has got too much ground to cover at that point. So maybe a yard in from here, that's when it goes over. So yeah, you're right in what you're saying. He goes over too late, but you can't go too early either, because then again it leaves 2 versus 1. So
I get what you're saying. You're saying he should. It isn't a case of he goes over too late, but he could go over too early. But this is what I'm saying, is that at the top level, we need players that are going to be making the decision at the right time. Like, I know you completely get what you're saying there, but he shouldn't be able to. He shouldn't be putting Kolasinac under that much pressure, seeing 2 players. He's got 3 players behind him with 2 Watford players. He's got the security behind him to be able to close it down sooner, and he doesn't.
I'm going to say something really controversial. I think I've already said loads of things already this show that people probably disagree with, but I have to stay true to what I believe in. I think that there was so many mistakes throughout the entirety of our team the other day that I'm not even that upset with David Luiz. We defended. We basically had no midfield, and we defended time and time again. And that kind of pressure on the defence is just it's huge. I actually think they defended quite well for the majority of the game. I know that they had 31 shots, but that isn't all the defenders, just the back 4. You can't blame it all on the back 4. You defend as a team, you attack as a team. And I think the midfield was all but invisible, which comes back to the points that you've been making on Xhaka, which I think are accurate. But the penalty, well, look, if they're going to have, all these touches in the box, they're going to have 31 shots on goal. I'm sorry, but you're going to give away a penalty now and then. You're going to have 1 or 2 bad tackles, and eventually you're going to give a penalty away. I think David Luiz is careless. It sucks that he's given away all these penalties in recent games. I actually don't think he had that bad a game. I think that there was other mistakes that didn't lead to a goal that you could say were just as bad. Socrates passed it straight to there. That led to the first goal, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, I don't see that on my Twitter feed as much as I see the David Luiz penalty. And to be fair, the David Luiz penalty is a weak tackle, but he was trying to get the ball. He probably thought he was outside the box as well, but he wasn't. So I'm trying not to crucify the players, individual players, too much, because I think we were dreadful from a whole team point of view. The only person that I'm going to take out that equation is Aubameyang, because but other than that, I think that's it really. Maitland-Niles, I think, made some awful mistakes. Some of the passing was outright dreadful. I mean, that pass you just showed from Maitland-Niles was abysmal. So how can I really sit here and say that David Luiz was awful and the penalty was dreadful and burn them at the stake, when there's other players that maybe didn't lead to a goal, which could have, because they were so awful throughout. So when you play that bad as a team, I think you need to just put them all accountability throughout the whole team, the senior management, the lot of them, rather than pigeonhole into individual players.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough. I just sort of wanted to show a couple of examples where I thought there was ingrained-ish, and I think, mate, I see your point on Xhaka. Maybe I was a bit harsh in that scenario. I still think he should be slightly closer. And I think actually, if anything, that example highlighted how out of position we are defensively on the counter and how many players commit and leave us so vulnerable. The reason why it's Xhaka there as well is another concerning thing. He's taken the free kick, isn't he, in that situation? Where is the cover?
I think the only shining light, I think the only silver lining that any Arsenal fan can really have in the back of their minds right now is what will it be like when we've got Bellerin, Tierney, and Holding back? Because
I've had people text me about that, and I've said that people have, like as they like to do when Arsenal drop points, is give me a little bit of stick, and I say exactly that. I was like, when we've got Bellerin in, when we've got Tierney in, when possibly Holding comes back in, it will be better.
That's a lot, right? It's 3 players. It's
3 players.
25% of the team, and it's 75%.
But at the same time, we've brought in the winger that Emery always wanted in Pepe, who was fantastic for Lille. We've played with Aubameyang and Lacazette in a game against Spurs in which we then went 2-0 down. And it's all well and good saying we can improve certain positions by bringing in better players. I agree with that. But ultimately, if your system doesn't work and the way you're trying to play is flawed, you're always going to have issues, no matter who those players are.
I don't think that the system's necessarily flawed. I don't think he has the players to implement it necessarily. And I think that that's kind of the big issue here. So, we're looking at Aubameyang and Pepe and wondering, why is he not kicking off and stuff like that. But when you're looking at Kolasinac and Ainsley Maitland-Niles and what they're actually providing, it's not up to par. It's not up to par. And especially defensively, you can use that Kolasinac example in terms of defensively. But like you said, we attack, like Webby said, we attack as a team, we defend as a team. The problem is that our midfield, besides not being very consistent in terms of who the actual personnel in the midfield is, so there's no cohesion there, they're very porous. They're very porous. I don't think that there's a lot of communication. You have Guendouzi, who, while he's a good pressing player, he's very young. He makes very silly decisions. Sometimes he's easy to take off the ball. I think he's good from a pressing point of view. Torreira, I think, his physicality in terms of his actual stature is diminishing or is a detrimental factor in terms of what we're able to do within the midfield. Xhaka being very one-footed and slow is very detrimental to what we do in the midfield. So when you have Kolasinac and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who are not the most defensive players, and that's an understatement, that there's little to no support in the midfield when something goes wrong in terms of being able to break up an attacking play. And we're talking about what kind of tactics Emery is going to employ here and why it's not working potentially with players like Pepe. So when you have a player like Tierney, when you have a player like Bellerin coming back, there's going to be a lot more of being quickness in terms of getting the ball from defense to attack, to the point where it's almost going to put a lot of teams on the back, if it's done right, put teams on the back heel in terms of having to all of a sudden switch and defend us. Also, because of the speed that we've heard of and seen, if you look at his career of Tierney and Bellerin, that the press is going to be, I think, a little bit better. And that's just, on paper, it should be that way. Now, whether that actually materializes is a different story. But when we're saying, look, if we're going to try to play from the back and we're wondering why it's not firing on all cylinders and why we're so porous, I think that a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're going to be missing these players right now. Or that we are missing these players right now, and they're going to be able to provide some auxiliary support for the midfield and also in connection with the wingers in the attack. So I disagree with people who say that it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that it's going to help. It's going to help. It's going to be better than what we have right now, from an attacking and a defensive point of view. And Holding was our best defender up until his injury. He was our best defender. If he can continue that form, if he can strengthen that's a very positive thing.
How can you even say that it ain't going to help? Like we're talking
about. I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm not saying it wouldn't.
Anyone can say it. There's only 10 players, outfield players on the pitch, other than goalie. So 3-player difference. Two of them
being the best players we had.
Yeah.
Bellerin was one of our best players until his injury. Holding was one of our best players until his injury. Tierney is supposedly an incredible player, and from all accounts, I haven't heard one negative thing about him. I think he's going to be okay adapting to the Premier League, touch wood. But if he does, we're talking about major players coming back, and you could laugh at that and say, no, these aren't major. How is Holding? How is Bellerin a major player? These were some of our best players before their injury. So, and Tom, I wasn't saying that you said that, but there are fans out there and saying that these players are not. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
All this, when we look back at these video clips, Tom, and you say about David Luiz pushing Kolasinac on and all this stuff, and should he have done it too early and late? They're the kind of things which I would hope and expect that better partnerships and better defenders will be doing so much more smoother. The transitions will be much more slicker. And Kolasinac never been a good left back at defending. He's better at going forward. I think we all agree. And Maitland-Niles, for me, unfortunately, hasn't really managed to meet the potential that I thought he would do at getting first team. Defensively, I think
he's not even really a right back.
Well, exactly. So
that will improve. That I don't.
It will.
Of course,
right
back position is going to improve.
It's going to get better. And look, we can't go in there expecting that it's going to be an instant change. That we're just they're going to come in this team and we're all of a sudden going to be better. It's going to take some time. It's going to take Tierney time to adapt to the Premier League. Bellerin, there's still a question mark about his injuries and whether he's going to come back as strong as he did and how much he's going to be able to help. But if you think in theory, it should help us. I'm hoping it does help us.
Fingers crossed.
There we go.
I do want to go on for a couple more minutes until we hit 10 o'clock, but my laptop is giving me loads of warnings saying I'm about to crash out and die. So I'm going to come to you, Webby, on one more thing before I go on to predictions. And whilst you're chatting, I'm going to run and grab my charger before things will die on me. And it is just this thing that I want to show you, something that we brought up, which I'll put back on the screen for you now, which hopefully is going to pop up. Let's go to this one. There we go. And that is the reason why we conceded the first goal. Because we can talk all day long about it will improve with Bellerin, and I agree with you. I think it will. But there's some things that need to change in terms of our system and tactics. And this just pained so many people when this moment where Leno passes it out to Socrates, and it's just the laziness of this pass straight out there. It's intercepted. Cleverly runs onto it and smashes it in. Now, we've known that there's been issues with this. Guendouzi was put under pressure right at the start in the first half because of this exact same scenario. But Webby, why is it, and this does come down to the manager, that in the second half that he's not told his players that if you're under pressure, just get rid of it. It's classic, it's basic. So while you're chatting, I'm going to run and get a charger, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, to me, sometimes you just can't fix stupid, right? I mean, that is just that is out the box stupid. And I don't necessarily mind playing out from the back. I think it's got its place. I think it's good to keep possession, especially as an Arsenal team, which I don't think we're really that great in the air. So if we flipped it and we was constantly booting it up to the halfway and every time, we'd probably be just giving away possession the majority of the time. So I think that setup has got its place in the game and in our strategy. I just think that is pure stupid to continue to do it regardless of the outcome.
Okay.
So, and he did. And I was at the first game of the season last year against Man City at home, Emery's first game, and we did exactly that. We played out every time without fail, come rain or shine, whether we were 7 goals down or not. We did it exactly the same. And now that is, to do the same thing. Is it Einstein? Are we talking about Einstein that said to do the same thing time and time again? Expect a different outcome is, the definition of craziness or whatever.
If I could play devil's advocate just for a second there, and
we've been doing a lot of that tonight.
Yeah. I feel like there's. So just to play devil's advocate for a second there, if you go back and you look at news articles and kind of commentary surrounding Pep's first season, he did the same thing with Manchester City, that he was playing from the back nonstop. And that he, everyone was saying, oh, it's not working. He didn't care. He kept with it. And now it's probably one of the best. Well, I mean, the recent result aside, it's very
Mendy sort of happening.
Yeah. Timing wise, maybe not the best time to bring it up. But the reality is that for a good amount of time there was a very valid and viable option. And he kind of said, I don't really care what anyone says. I guess the counter argument to that is he's also spelled like $1 billion and have the players that can, the defenders that are good with the ball at their feet. We couldn't do it with Czech because he's not very good with the ball at his feet. Leno's a little bit better, but now our defenders not very good with the ball at their feet. So at the same time, though, should he stop doing it just because it's not working right now?
No, you should continue doing it. But when we
you really want him to keep doing it,
we're under the cosh, and I think twice before that led to potential goals.
Gotcha.
I think at some point, any sane person, and if I'm getting paid as much as Emery and I'm a world-class manager, I should know to go, hang on, lads, let's get it up the field now. Like, let's just switch to plan Z for the next 10 minutes. Let's get the monk off our back a bit, and then we can go back to trying to pass it into their hands if we really have to. But I just think at some point you've got to draw a line, and if there is no time, if you never draw the line, and you're constantly getting caught out, then that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Here's
the problem.
Let's go real crazy. What if Watford 5 players on the edge of the box? Let's go in what if Watford pushed 5 players on the edge of the box and just surrounded the box? Do you still play out then, or do you just kick it above their heads and go and score?
Now, when you say we, do you mean me or does Emery do it?
Common sense knows that me and John would pass the ball and I'd lump it up the pitch. But we know that these players are loyal to a fault, and that was the clear obvious of what happened. And maybe they would still pass it. They might be forced to then lump it up the pitch, but at the same time, they would still try. And ultimately, they're employed by the club and they're employed to do what the manager asks. If the manager asks them, no matter what, that is what we need to do, then that's what we do. And
but why not go wide? Why not go wide?
I agree with you.
You get taught at 5-year-old now as a defender, never ever pass the ball across the box. So if you're a right back, you don't pass it across the box. So surely as a centre back, when you've got 2 players in front of you, go wide. Why would he even think of playing that ball? Bearing in mind, 5 minutes before that, the exact same thing happened. Why would you do it again?
It's your definition of insanity, mate. That's what it is. It is mad. I don't get why we did it. I don't get the persistence. I don't get the lack of common sense in the decision making of why it wasn't lumped up the pitch, especially as you said, we're 2-0 up. Why are we throwing it away? Why are we putting ourselves under pressure? Like, we don't need.
We do it all the time. We do it all the time.
Right back what we said 35, 40 minutes ago. There's no leader. There's no John Terry's, Tony Adams. There's no one to go up to them after they nearly scored the last time and go, don't bloody do it again. Just go wide. No one shaking sense into these players. Xhaka didn't go up to him and go, oh my God, like, for Christ's sake, don't do that next time. Not everyone just goes, oh, that was lucky. We didn't do that time.
Yeah. Right. We're going to round things down because before one of us has an aneurysm. It's funny. I said that yesterday I did the Raw reaction show as sort of that emotional response. And I thought the podcast is like, you have a day to reflect and calm and chill. And as soon as you start talking about it,
I tried. I said, I was thinking this morning, I was like, all right, I'll be calm. I have a day to think about it. And then it was just like, I was thinking about the comments about how hot it was out there. And that's why he took Ceballos off. And I'm going, what the hell are you talking?
That's been taken out of context a lot. Not on, a lot of people were saying it was wrong for Ceballos to say he was hot. That's not what it was. That's the excuse that Emery gave.
That's even worse.
I know.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, how are you going to do that? You look at the Watford manager who's wearing long sleeve shirts. I mean, yeah, his pit stains were kind of bigger than the expected goal difference, but
Spanish.
You say that before I was having an aneurysm, I actually didn't really fancy coming on tonight because Just
whoa.
No. There's a few people.
Me either.
You would have pulled a Webby.
There's a few people that do reviews and stuff, and they come on and they share their opinions, and everyone loves them when things go wrong because they're so opinionated and they get really upset and they swear and they scream, and it's good viewing. Do you know what? I just like talking about Arsenal when we're doing well. I hate it.
That's why I asked you, because you're Mr. Positive.
No, it's true though. It's true that you want to be like, it's so emotional. Like, this game is so emotional that, like, you want to be rational and reasonable, but after, like, it just gets so difficult after a while. You just want to be like, forget it. Done. Like,
if you look at the views on videos about like after a win or a loss, depending on the game, like if it's the North London derby, then you've won it. You're going to get a lot of people wanting to celebrate. But
no one cares.
Who's going to tune in to Arsenal winning 3-0 against Aston Villa at home next week if that happens? I mean,
probably won't.
I mean, who's going to tune in? But the thing is, people will tune in to talk about this and talk about Arsenal capitulating, because there is more to talk about, and it's much easier to express frustration than it is to express praise, and it's just normal. That's just how it is, and that's just how we see things. But we do need to look ahead, because it is past 10 now, and it's past our hour mark. So we're going to round down. There won't be another podcast between now and the Aston Villa game, so that means we've got to look at two quick games. So I want a prediction from you both. You can say a couple of words for each game if you like as well. Webby, I'm going to be mean and start with Mr. Positive yourself. You've had a struggle tonight. I can see you. I wish we could take like two cuts of what you've looked like at the start of the pod and at the end of the pod.
If you looked off camera, I'm nervous. I'm not picking. I'm trying to contain it, but I'm not really doing a good job.
It's the first time I've wore a jumper all year, and I'm just sweating one out. It was a bad decision. So Frankfurt obviously comes up first. It's going to be tough. I believe it's away from home. It's going to be a really, really tough game. It's going to be a loss. Did you say? So your prediction for the Frankfurt game is a loss, and the Aston Villa game as well.
I think we're going to lose to Frankfurt. Probably something like 2-0 or something. I don't think we're going to bounce back off of this game very well, and I don't expect to see the same lineup either. I reckon we'll come out of a totally different team. But I think to go through the entire squad, it doesn't matter if you're on the pitch or off the pitch. That kind of daunting, scared, as Xhaka put, goes for the team, and it's hard to bounce back after like 2 or 3 days from that. So I think Frankfurt, they're the hardest team in the group. They're a great little team as well. Got a lot of admiration for Frankfurt, and I think they'll probably beat us. I do, however, think that we'll probably knock some sense into each other for the following game, and then we'll go and beat Aston Villa.
Do you know who we are?
Yeah. So I'm going to go loss 2-0, and I'm going to go for a win against Villa, 3-1. We can't get a clean sheet, so it was something like a 1.
Johnny boy.
I think we'll draw Frankfurt. We'll draw. I think that we're. I just can't. I mean, I think in my heart, I think I know we're going to lose, but I think, or in my head, I think we're going to lose, but my heart can't deal with that. So I'm going to go with the draw, even though I don't think that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I like Webby said, they are a good little team, and I think that the shining light or the hope is that we actually do tend to bounce back sometimes from these bad results. So maybe that'll be good enough to get us through it. But I mean, if we allow Frankfurt to come and do their thing, like we allowed Watford to do it, if we keep that up, this just sitting back, absorbing these attack after attack, it's not going to end well for us. And that's against any team in the league. I mean, this is a league where you can't do that. You can't just sit there and unless you're, Liverpool at Anfield and you haven't, lost a game there in 30 years or whatever the stat is now. So I'm going to say a draw. And then I'm going to say, I think we're going to beat Aston Villa. I think we'll beat them. I think we're going to beat them comfortably. I think. God. I know. I can't. I know. I think we're going to beat them comfortably. They're just not. I don't know. It's never comfortable, is it? I think we're going to win. I think we'll be 2-0. I think we'll 2-0 with Aston Villa, and I think that we will draw probably. I would say 2-2 against Frankfurt.
Yeah. Oh, well, we just have to wait and see. I think that when it comes to Arsenal in those two games, we've got a game against a really, really good German side. Eyes of the Opposition show, by the way, will be out at some point before that with the boys from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast, American-based podcast on Frankfurt. So they're going to be with them chatting about Frankfurt and getting all the insight. Obviously, they've lost Jovic and Haller to Real Madrid and West Ham, respectively. So they've replaced him. Andre Silva, used to play at Sevilla, has replaced them. And Bas Dost as well from Sporting Lisbon has come in. So Rebic is still there. Not sure if he's fit or not. I don't think he played at the weekend from what I checked. But we'll have to wait and see what they say about that. It's a really tough game. But you know me, I'm ever the optimist. I run myself into the ground every time. In a sneaker 1-0 win in Germany, somehow, Martinelli's going to score the goal. It's going to be great. And I will go with my head says 1-1 against Villa. It really does. But on my heart, it's going to go always with a comfortable 2-0 victory. And we won't know what we were worrying about. So that's what I'm going to go with.
I will say, and just kind of a little bit of optimism. Maybe we can.
Did Rebic go AC Milan? Was someone put that in the chat? How did I miss that?
Yeah.
Did Ante Rebic go AC Milan? I've really missed that. Wow, that's a big one.
Well, that's interesting.
I didn't even know. That's really... Yeah, he genuinely has. I didn't know that. Wow, that's something I missed completely. That's ridiculous. Oh, so Andre Santos went Andre Silva went the other way. Wow, I didn't know that happened. That weakens them for sure.
All right.
No Rebic, no Jovic, no Haller. That is wow, I didn't know that. Insane. Oh, well, you learn something new every day. Even me, the hipster of European football.
Get on this.
Oh, dude, that's poor. I'm actually a little bit ashamed of myself. Anyway, so yeah.
What I was saying before that is that if there is a little bit of positivity here, and I think that there potentially is, it's that it's still a draw. It's that we still got a point. It was away from home. It shouldn't have been a draw. We probably should have lost, but we didn't. Now we can look at this a couple different ways, but if at the end of the season we're in top 4 or we won the Europa League, all this is not going to be relevant for the purposes of this one match. So that's the only silver lining, I think.
Yeah, I should have to see. Kostic and De Silva still there. I think they are. I've just checked. Yes, they are both still there. De Silva. Is it De Silva? De Costa, the right wing back. He's great. Great player. So is Kostic, very good. So they'll be dangerous on the wings for them with some big boys up top and Andre Silva and Bas Dost, although I don't think the Dutchman's been starting. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see. Let's see what the American boys say about their beloved Frankfurt when we talk to them. Also, the quick take, I'm hoping Webby and John, can you commit yourselves already, saying that you're going to be putting your words in ahead of the Frankfurt game?
Yep.
Good stuff. So hopefully you both enjoyed doing that, and you should hopefully see a lot more of those throughout the season, because the boys, as I said on the show right at the beginning when I introed it, I love doing the podcast. I love getting the boys on as much as possible, but I can only get 2 people on at a time, and I'd love for you guys to hear more of what these guys have got to say. So I think that the quick take is a good middle ground between that. So you'll see that again beforehand. Hopefully Drew and Graham will also put their say as best they can as well to get the full team on before each game. But I hope you've enjoyed things. If you have, please give the show a like. Please subscribe. Big thanks to John. Always appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, thanks. It was actually really cathartic to talk to you here today. So
yeah.
I actually got a lot off my chest. I know. I got a little emotional there, and I usually don't. But it was just it's been a long time coming. So.
Yeah, we provide a service. That's what we're here for. Webby, I'm going to try and get that before and after pick if I can. I think you'll decline into madness or into insanity by doing the same thing over and over again.
I didn't really want to talk about it. You called it out me like I'm in therapy. And
what a good interviewer does, mate.
Upstairs and stomp my feet about it now.
Oh yeah.
No, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been a good session of therapy. I don't know how much I owe you, but send me your bank details.
Yeah, of course, always. It's usually about £50 a minute. That's usually my fee, which
Gotta
is
go.
I think is fairly reasonable. But no, thank you to you both. Of course, you'll be able to check out their details in the description. You can see John on the screen. John's up with things, Webby, because he likes to put his Twitter handle and his actual name on here.
I was thinking that. I was just looking at it, and I thought, you know what? No wonder either I don't get any followers because no one cares what I say, or I just don't know it enough.
And you've got over 4,000. I don't know what you're on about. John's nearly hitting 10K. I was looking at that earlier. He's very close. Go follow John.
I'm going to plug.
If I get 10,000, that'd be great.
I really need to follow you, to be fair, John, because I don't.
At Webby AFC 182. If you aren't following me, give us a like because it makes me feel better about myself.
There you go. And if there's anything, look at that guy's face. He needs to feel better. Send him some compliments. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in this evening. Much appreciated. You'll see us tomorrow for the tactical breakdown with myself and Graham breaking down. Still talking about the Watford game. It's going to be painful.
How much?
Oh, no. So tune in for that. Find out where things really went wrong for us. And obviously, it's always great to hear from Graham Brooks and his tactical side of the game. So looking forward to that. Drop a like, as K-Man says there in the chat. If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. And if you're new, turn those notifications on as well, because then you get told when the show goes live. So you can join us in that live chat and ask us some questions. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Always a pleasure. And as always, up the Arsenal.